Well, good morning. This is Scott Combs with Orchid Insurance. Thank you for dialing into the webinar this morning. Greatly appreciate that. We're going to talk about the Connect system and entry for quoting, and then we will go through a presentation at the end if you want to stick around. That'll be the second half of the presentation. Kind of go over a little bit about who Orchid is, a little more on context, a little more on just kind of working with us and what's expected on your side and what would be expected on ours. So there is a Q&A and a chat option. You can choose either one. You don't need to do both. I have both open, so if you have questions, feel free to type those in. And this morning I'm guest paneling, I guess, with Christopher Garrett. And Chris, would you like to say good morning?
Sure, thanks, Scott. Hey guys, I just wanted to welcome you all to the webinar. We're excited for Scott to get the opportunity to train you on the new system that you may already potentially be using, depending on the state that you're in, or about to be using in a few of the states that we're going to be rolling out over the next coming weeks. So we just want to make sure you guys continue to know how the best way to enter quotes and get submissions in front of our underwriters so we can get them back to you as quickly as possible. So I know Scott's going to do a good job. I'm unfortunately going to be able to stick around for the length of this, but I know you're in good hands. And Scott, I will let you take it from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you dialing in this morning. So, all right. So this hopefully this screen looks familiar to some of you. If not, you're going to get to know it because this is the Orchid Connect system that really ties, if you were working with the CAA system and possibly Policy Plus, we're going to tie it all together here in the Connect system. So the way this is going to work, if we are focusing on the Northeast, which is Virginia up, the vast majority of the states are already rolled out onto Connect in its entirety, meaning that CAA is shut down for new business as well as Policy Plus. The two remaining states are Mass and Jersey, and you guys will hit those dates in the coming days, probably next week at some point. So you should have credentials that are assigned to you. Please do not share credentials with Connect. I know a lot of systems, people do share their credentials, but with Connect, it will create problems for you. So I'm just trying to help you help yourself. So, all right, once we're in, let's talk about how the homepage is laid out. So up here, you have a smiling face here. Hello, how may I help you? This is our live chat feature. And if you click on that, it's going to open up a live chat window down here, kind of covering the commercial lines picture a bit. So they are available to you Monday through Friday, 8 until 6. That's our customer experience team. They also man the phone lines, this 772-237-8818. If you're more old school like me and you like to hear a voice, you can absolutely reach out to those folks. They are world-class on the customer experience side. They will they have an answer for darn near anything. They are very highly scrutinized on first call resolution. So when you reach out to them, you're in the best hands that you could be in. And then you also have your regional business development managers, which I'll cover at the end. So when I think about kind of coming into Connect and what you would do on a regular basis, I think the vast majority it falls into two buckets. One is I've got a quote or a policy out there, and I just want to pull that up. So you can see I typed in my last name. I clearly do a lot of quotes myself during these webinars. So that is how you perform a quick search. You type in some information. It could be policy number. It could be the submission number. It could be the name like you saw there. It's bits and pieces, and you can then whittle that list down if need be by typing more information into your box, into your search box. Then I think, okay, the other thing is probably the majority of the time I'm coming in to create a new quote. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hover on the quotes and policies, and then you will see the drop down appear that says create new quote as my first option. So I am going to do that, and it's always going to be personal lines. I don't even know if you guys will see commercial lines through the way you're set up or not. All right, so I am going to start my quote here. Oops, I always fast finger it. Sorry, folks. All right, so this named insured, this could read any way your insured wants it to read. So we can, on the deck, list a trust, an LLC, a corporation, and all you have to do is indicate what the entity type is. And then regardless of these two radio buttons, it's going to ask the same question. What's the principal address and name? That's all we need. So if it's in the Scott Combs Living Trust or something like that, we can have that as the named insured, no issue. With regards to the start date, that can be immediate because about 80% of the quotes that are entered, we return an immediate rate. And we do not offer any type of early quoting discount. So it can be today, 5 days out, 10 days out, the rates are going to be the same. All right, so I'm going to change that back to individual. Now, the address. This is probably the single most important thing that you'll do on this page to have success as you move through the process. And I know we live in a multi-monitor, cut and paste kind of world, but even if you do that, please follow the steps that you're going to see me follow here. And that is simply allowing the list to populate and you select from that list. Now, if you cut and pasted the entire address in, it may drop down with just that address. You need to click on that address below because that kicks off a validation step is what we call it. And it's doing a couple things. One is we are determining the distance to coast as Orchid measures it. And if you're used to working with CAA, you know, they did not care about distance to coast, but we do take that into consideration. So we're figuring that out behind the scenes for you once that address is validated. The other thing that it's doing is it's verifying that we don't currently insure that residence. Because we don't want to provide a new quote on something that should be handled at renewal. Couple last notes on the address. If you have an apartment unit or suite number because you're writing maybe a condo or a renter, put that information in this field, please. If you went to maps.google.com, you could type an address that included the suite number, and that Google engine strips out the address or the apartment number or the suite number and just looks at this address like you're seeing it right here. Well, the way we invoke Google, it does not have that ability. So we have to ask our agents to pull that out for us. If for any reason that dropdown was returning no information, one thing I will say is if you're at the end of the zip code, back up a couple numbers and then retype and see if it doesn't populate that list. Give it a minute to populate. Really important step. All right. If you were to have trouble finding the address for whatever reason, maybe it's a new build, you're just going to say yes, you're having trouble finding the address and enter all this information. But I had no issues there. This is not currently insured with Orchid. Here is where your name, your underwriter name, phone number, and email will be displayed, but it only displays here after you leave this screen. You might go, well, Scott, that seems like kind of silly. Why would you have that information that I can't see? Well, we do show it in 2 additional places, and we wanted it on the first page here so that when you retrieved a quote, it would be right there in front of you, all right, in case you needed to reach out to your underwriter. Then the last question on this page is policy type. So what this is going to do is this is going to sap the remainder of my policy or my quote questions. So you can see we do a high net worth, an HO3, an HO5, DP6, the HO6 and the DP3, HO4, wind only, builder's risk. We have a valuable item standalone inland marine policy, or you can actually schedule any items on the HO3, 5, or 6. Just keep in mind, regardless of how you schedule items with us, we are going to want an appraisal that is no more than 3 years old. All right. And then rounding out the list is the excess flood. But I'm going to keep this one simple. I'm going to go with an HO3. And then you can see, boom, it has set up my question list for me. So now we can accommodate anything from a single family home up to a triplex. When was that home built? Mine was built in 15. I only have one story. I have 2,200 square feet. And how is that home used? So we have primary, secondaries with rentals, rental only, vacant. You can have rentals on a primary. It just has to be under or 26 weeks or under during a policy period. And those are cumulative days. Those are not consecutive. So if you've got somebody who does a bit of traveling and they're doing the Airbnb, VRBO type of thing, we can accommodate that even on their primary address as long as it doesn't exceed that 26 weeks. But this is my primary residence. If you live or write business in a state that has hardy board or hardy plank, we rate those homes as frame. Just know that you won't see a listing for hardy board anywhere. But my home is masonry. My roof year is also 2015. And then we get into roof shape. Now, notice roof shape, roof connected, and mitigation are all underlined. So there are some hyperlinks here. And what good are those, you might ask? Well, let's look at just the roof shape and deal with that one first. So we've got hip, gable, flat. Everybody's pretty good with that. Then we throw this whole complex thing in, and it just messes up everybody. So we have these gigantic illustrations that if you have the magnifying glass that I sent to each attendee, you'll be able to see these a lot better. You've got the gable end you're familiar with. You know what a hip roof looks like. Complex is not some sort of crazy complex roof line. All it is very simply a combination of a hip roof with some gable attributes. So you can see this particular illustration. Above the one garage, you have a gable, and then above the second garage, you start that hip wrapping around the home. So that's all complex is. It's not meant to throw you. It is just a combination of the two. And mine is actually complex. I have architectural shingles, and you will see there's no listing for architectural shingles. To us, an asphalt shingle is an asphalt shingle. So that's what I'm going to select there. Roof connected to the wall. How is that roof joist connected to the wall? So you can see there's some different options here. If you do not live in a state that has a wind mitigation report, you may not have this information. Your insured may not have this information. And this is something that I would actually encourage insureds to do, is get an inspector in the attic to get a photograph or two of how that roof is connected to the wall. Because when you're writing where the wind blows, that can make a big difference in terms of premium. So we go all the way from a toenail to a clip, a single wrap, or a double wrap in those illustrations. And I actually have a connection type that isn't listed, and that is anchor bolt. If you have to choose unknown, that's fine. I would say 80% of business that comes in is with unknown because of horrible building codes and things like that, and just not knowing. We get it. Foundation type, concrete slab, concrete block, that will also serve as your basement. I know CAA had that as an option, so you'll want to choose concrete block. And then pilings and stilts and pier and beams, really the same thing, just different states call it different things. The wind mitigation, if you wanted some gigantic illustrations, there's one more hyperlink for you, but you know what shutters and plywood look like. And so, you know, we really want to know what's going to cover that entry point into the home in the event the wind starts blowing. All right. And then, do I have a swimming pool? I don't, but let's open this up just to show you. So there are a number of questions. You saw it with the trust and the LLC where they're responsive disclosure. So you answer a question, it may then require additional information, such as the pool. So we want to know, is it fenced to code? Is it unfenced? Is it above ground? Is there a screen enclosure above it? Is there a slide, a diving board, a diving rock, anything that encourages diving? We want to know those two items because we are going to put an exclusion, a liability exclusion for anything resulting from the use of those two items. All right, so make sure that you answer all those questions appropriately. I'm going to change it back to no since I don't have a pool. Fire alarm and burglar alarm, you're going to have the same three choices: none, local, or central. If you have a centrally monitored a fire and burglar alarm, we are going to want to obtain proof of that. So if you choose central, you're going to come over here to the common screens on the left-hand side, and the first option is upload attachments. If you click on that, you will be able to grab a file, and what we're looking for is either a current receipt from that monitoring company or a contract, just showing that it is indeed centrally monitored. Now, mine could be, I'm too cheap to pay 25 bucks a month, so it's just local. And that's perfectly fine. The ISO protection class, we do not make this determination for you. You'll need to come in knowing what your ISO protection class is. All right, sprinkler system. This is not, is your grass greener than your neighbor's grass? This is an interior sprinkler question. So just note that. The water mitigation device, this is something relatively new, and if you've never heard of it, we've got these handy little question marks in a box for you. So you can hover on those and you can find out additional information. So you can see it's an automatic shutoff valve into the home's main water if it detects moisture. And we are going to also want proof that that has been installed. So that's one more where you would use the upload attachment. But I don't have that, nor do I live in a gated guarded community. But a lot of these questions, a vast majority of these questions do impact rate. So be sure that you're answering these as tightly as possible for your insured's benefit. All right, so we're done with the first page, and you can see under submission screens, we have the insured details screen, which we're working on now. The next logical field or screen would be the coverage and underwriting, and then that finally will get us to the select your quote screen. So if I do a save and refresh, that's just going to save the information and keep me on this page. If I use the right arrow, what that's going to do is it's actually going to save my information, verify that it all works, that it's all correct, or it'll stop and give you an edit. And if everything checks out, it will progress you to the next logical screen. And I don't know if it's the weather that I'm having in South Florida, but I am having some delayed time here. So I apologize. Got a big storm rolling in here. So we're on to page 2, the second screen. We have this target premium. And keep in mind that we are writing E&S or excess and surplus lines, which are not filed rates with the state. So we have some flexibility. So we ask you, give us the target premium. Maybe you have a renewal, maybe you have a competitive quote. Let us know what that number is. And oftentimes, if we're within a certain tolerance, we'll send you an email so you know that we hit that tolerance. And we also send it to the underwriter so that they know, hey, I just entered a quote for Scott Combs. We're within a target premium. Can you reduce that premium down that we return to meet that target premium? It will not impact any immediate rates that are provided to you, but anything that is a submission, an underwriting required submission, that information will be very useful. And even if we return a rate and we're within that tolerance, it can still be used on your behalf by the underwriter. All right, coverage A, the dwelling amount should be full replacement cost. We don't want to get your insurance into a co-insurance situation. Coverages B, C, and D are completely customizable with us. And this is one of the harder things for agents to understand, or I guess maybe just get used to, because the admitted carriers all have a prescribed percentage off that coverage A as to what coverage limits you should carry. Well, to me, that's horse place coverage, because I look at my home, I have no other structures on my property that I need to insure. So why have tens of thousands of dollars worth of coverage under coverage B, C, or D for that matter, that I may never, ever have an opportunity to take advantage of. So I'm going to leave my other structures at 0. And I certainly don't have 50% worth of the coverage A in terms of personal property. My loss of use, I do like that to be a little heavier, 25,000. Personal liability, I would encourage you to choose no more than $500,000. We don't have a lot of carriers remaining that still offer that $1 million limit, but of those that do, those are all referral companies. So what I tell agents is pick the $500,000 solution, get the rate, and if we're within the ballpark and you want to move forward, then come back and change it to $1 million and have that referred to an underwriter. And I'm going to show you that process. Medical payments, we can go from none up to 10,000. I'm going to choose 5. Wind deductible amount, this percentage is going to change by state. You'll see different lists, and you can find it change within a state depending on your proximity to water. So on this one, I'm just going to choose 2%. I might choose a $2,500 AOP deductible, my extended replacement cost, ordinance or law. Now, you kind of get in a sense that a lot of this stuff is a la carte, and you're kind of seeing the rest of the questions after I scroll down. Now, there are 2 for what I would call, again, forced place coverage situation, and that is on the loss assessment, and you'll actually see on documents that we have a golf cart liability on all of our policies. So we're giving $1,000 worth of loss assessment, and we know the vast majority of the world does not live in an HOA, and they would not have a loss assess, but this is the package our carriers have agreed to put together for us. And they may not own a golf cart, so they may not need golf cart liability, but again, it's just part of the package that we're providing to the insured. So those are really the only 2 forced place coverage, if you will. Then mold remediation, none up to 25,000. I'm going to choose none. Same with water backup, same $5,000 increments. Identity fraud, personal injury fraud. The golf cart physical damage. So if they do actually own one and they want to carry physical damage on it, they can do that. Even if it's licensed for road use, we're fine with that. We can extend liability for a secondary home, provided that home is not a rental property. The broadened home share coverage, so this is the Airbnb. So regardless of whether it was primary, and that's really where we get into it if you need that broadened home share. The valuable items I mentioned, so again, if you want to schedule those items out, we are going to have an appraisal that's no more than 3 years old. All right, so that's kind of the coverage half of the screen. Now we get into the underwriting questions, and we have one gigantic underwriting question, and that basically asks, can you agree that the answer to all of these questions is no? If it's not, you're going to have to disagree. And then boom, you'll see all those questions open up below so you can let your underwriter know, because now this is going to become a referral. You can let your underwriter know the additional information that they're going to be looking for. All righty, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to agree to that. Claims in the last 3 years, that's what we concern ourselves with, cat and non-cat claims. Note that we do have markets for risks with prior claims. However, I will caution you that if you have more than 2 non-cat claims in the last 3 years, that's going to be a harder risk for us to find a home for. So you may have to give your underwriter an extra day or 2. But know that we do have some solutions out there. And then the dog breed, this is where I always remember to tell people, get into Connect, familiarize yourself kind of up front with the flow of it. Maybe some of the questions that we're asking might be a little different. And even this dog list, I look at this and I kind of wonder, like, how did this German Shepherd or a Husky end up on a dangerous bite breed? It is what it is, so familiarize yourself with it so it doesn't catch you off guard. All right, and then beyond that list, we want to know if you have an animal bite history. So maybe your dog, your Chihuahua, isn't on that list, but it's uptight and it loves to bite strangers. Well, we'd like to know about that if you don't mind. So just answer that as yes. That way we can add the animal bite exclusion, right? So kind of regardless of if you answered the dog question up here or an animal bite history, we will add that exclusion. And then as primary flood in place, is it a high valued or a high hazard flood zone, ARV, mortgage? And then the last question on this page has to do with fuel tank, whether it's above ground, underground, basement, or none. All right, I am going to click that right arrow. I could have gone back by using the left arrow. The save and refresh will again save the quote and keep me on that page. And so here we are. We're at the select your quote screen, and you can see we've got an $1,100 premium through QBE that actually beats our target premium. So we're looking pretty so far. Now, one thing I do want to caution you, if you've been writing QBE through CAA, this product through Orchid is slightly different. Just the way we handle some policy forms and things of that nature, and that stuff I'll get into in the second half of this. All right, so here's your assigned underwriter, name, phone number, that's their direct dial, and then their email address. I'm going to skip the middle two sections. You can see we've returned 3 quotes. So we've got QBE, which is winning by almost a landslide if you compare it to Lloyd's Chaucer, Clear Blue kind of in the mix. But then the other 3 carriers will always be referrals. However, that Beasley and Lloyd's Brit, we didn't even hit the minimum coverage A to be considered by them. So we've got three rates, and that QBE rate's looking pretty sweet. Now, I'm going to deal with the adjust your price section. So other than this windstorm deductible type, all 5 of the remaining questions will always be there for you to make adjustments as you so choose. All right. And if you have the wind deductible type, you may see wind and hail, named storm, hurricane. It just depends on state. All right. And you may not see this field at all. And that's your indication that everything we're writing in that state is on a named storm. But I'm just going to leave that as it is. And I'm really pretty done. I like that quote. What I'm going to do is I'm going to print a quote sheet so I can provide that to my insured. So I'm going to go to quote package. I always print the quote package because it grabs all the ancillary forms that you might see in that list. And I'm going to print that, and it's going to open up a PDF. And there you go. There's your insured's name and the address that we're insuring. This will be your agency's name if I didn't go too far. All right, that's your agency's name. We've got a quote number here that ties to the submission ID. Hey, when you call us, we'll come up with a new name for it just to confuse you. You can see we have QB. I'm just kidding about that, I think. You can see we've quoted it with QBE. The premium matches up based on this information. Now, one thing you need to know is Orchid is very transparent in terms of charges. So you'll see in there is an inspection fee of $150. That inspection fee can vary from state to state and from product to product. But do know that all resident types will be inspected on new business as well as renewal. We are very adamant that having an inspection that is no more than 12 months old, where you're writing where the wind blows, is very important because things can change rapidly. We do not allow agents to do self-inspections. We actually send out an inspector annually, and they will see that charge on an annual basis. Scrolling down here, you can see some information that you've entered, the terms and conditions. Boom, here's your application all completed nicely for you. Then we have about 27 pages of state warnings, and then we can sign it. If you are used to working with CAA and you had to submit signed applications within 10 days, you no longer need to do that. We do not want the signed application. Keep that in your records, and if we ever need that, we'll reach out. All right, so what does printing that quote do for me? Well, it kind of memorializes that quote, which I like. Every time I create a quote, I want it memorialized so I know what I did. So you can see it starts to develop this documents and policies repository, right? So all the documents that you create, that we create, maybe you request bind and we return the policy documents, those will be listed here, as well as emailed out to you, which is going to be a little different change. Policy documents will come directly to you as the logged in agent, all right? So just be aware of that. It is a slight change. So I'm going to cancel that out. Now, if everything looks good, I can either quit because I need to wait to hear from my insured, or they love it and they want me to move forward and move them on to the info required to bind screen. This is the last screen you're going to see. All right, so I'm going to enter some information here. My agent license. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Hopefully that's all good. This should be your credentials here. If it's not, you're sharing credential and you're not listening. But we do give you this opportunity. So if you wanted the documents to come back to somebody in addition to yourself within the agency, you can actually do that simply by adding the alternative agency contact. All right, but I'm going to say no there. There's your underwriter information again. If I have a mortgagee, don't try and add it into this grid. Click on the add button. It'll bring up the dialog box where you can enter all the information in. Once you do the save, it will populate in a line here. This screen is, or the, whoops, where did it go? I just closed that, sorry. So this screen is super important, or this section of the screen, which is the inspection information. So who do I reach out to in terms of the connection? And I got to quit closing that. I accidentally keep closing on the wrong thing. So sometimes this is the named insured. Sometimes it's not. So you're going to, if it's a property manager, maybe that it needs to go to that person. So let the inspector know who they should reach out to. All right. All right. Really important information right there. Then we have the attestation where you have a signed application and you agree to the terms. I'm going to hit save and refresh here, and boom. Hey, it threw an error. It's saying it needs the information. So it's the same information as down here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to cut and paste that right up there and make that happy. And oh, I forgot to answer that. Yeah, I want to answer that I have it and that I agreed to the terms. I pointed those all out, didn't answer question one of them. So now we're going to do that final check. Now you're going to see that this big green banner comes up. We are ready for you to bind. All you have to do is request bind. Now keep in mind, we do not, Orchid does not extend binding authority to agents because we write in cat-prone areas. So a lot of it has to do with moratoriums. And moratoriums will be handled pretty much as such. We'll send out an early email letting you know that, hey, moratoriums are going to start to flow in. But we could be working with 10 different carriers. And to inundate your inbox with 10 different carriers, hey, this county's up, this county's down, you're going to kill us by the end of the moratorium. So we'll let you know it's coming. We'll let you know when it's shut down. And if you request bind during a moratorium, someone from Orchid is going to reach out to you and find a solution for that insured. So once you click on this request bind, you've done it. You bought that policy. So you can play around all up until the point where you see that request bind button. Please, please, please don't click on that because I have to call 27 people to get that unraveled. All right. So that's really the end of the process. Now, the last thing I want to show you is what a referral looks like. And this is really important. Let's bump that personal liability up to $1 million and see if we can't get a referral going here. Now, I probably stuck my foot right in my mouth. Perfect. All right. We are at the referral screen. So you can see those other two screens have gone away. we've got a status of underwriting required. It's in red. We're trying to say, hey, do something. And that something is click on submit referral. See this button right here? That's what gets it to your underwriter. If you have an underwriting required and you don't hit submit referral, it's sitting in limbo. The underwriter doesn't know it's there. You do. That's not doing you any good because you want that in the underwriter's queue to submit a quote back to you. And so make sure you click on that. And then it will say referral requested. That status will change. You'll kind of watch that status. That's your indication of what's going on. So that's pretty much the different things you're going to run into. Some things here. So we talked about the upload attachments. We talked about the documents and forms repository. These next three, don't even bother. Submit referral is the same as the submit referral. You're going to see a lot of actions that are also buttons over here. So create quote version, you can disregard. Calculate quote, you don't have to use that, nor copy. So on this particular page, the only action really is to submit that referral to get that into your underwriter. All right, so let's go back to the home page, point out a few things, and then we'll get into kind of the nitty gritty on the details. So we have a check balance payment right into that portal. There is going to be a document that we will share with you that will answer hopefully any questions that you have about this. But to me, this is real simple. Make your insurance pay with a check. Remember, you're not handling money. You can assist them in coming in here and pay by check. And I highly discourage the use of credit card because Express Pay is charging about a 3% surcharge based on premium to run a credit card. That feels a little steep to me. So I highly encourage that pay with check. And again, remember, you're not dealing with money as a Liberty agent. You'll have your insurance pay, but if that helps facilitate it, fantastic. The Connect support section, or I'm sorry, the Knowledge Center will bring up, now we're in the process of building one of these just for the Liberty Mutual agents, so you can see some more information dedicated really to you. But until then, here's what we have. We have the personal lines. These are basically all our YouTube channel videos. And then over here under the training documents, this product training, that document is going to be similar to what you're going to see come up next, slightly different, same with the contacts. The payment portal instructions, those are good. They're not tailor-made for you guys, but it gets you there. And how to submit that underwriting required risk. So if you get off this call and you go, oh God, I remember Scott talking about this. What do I click? There's a document right there to let you know. All right. So, and the last thing I want to show you is behind the picture. So if you click on personal lines, you may be very familiar with this next page, which is the tile page. All right. So it lays all the tiles available out to you. Please note, if you choose high net worth here or yachts and watercraft, it's going to take you right into the high net worth application rather than into the Connect workflow. All right, so that's kind of Connect. If you have any questions about what we've covered here, please enter that into chat or Q&A. Now, what I would like to do is shift gears a little on you, so you kind of got that. And I'd like to talk a little bit about who Orchid is, and that was not what I wanted to do. So let's start from the beginning, because you might be used to CAA, and we do handle things differently between the two. So you can see we're a personal lines E&S. A lot of this is going to be repetitive over what I spoke to. The national footprint, you can see we've pushed into all 50 states, and we even have wind capacity in the Caribbean. If you go onto orchidinsurance.com, there is in the upper right-hand corner a word that says footprint. If you click on it, you will get this blue map, and it's actually interactive. So if you happen to be an agent that is writing in multiple states, you can find out the information about those multiple states there. All right. You're doing the webinar today, so hey, thank you so much for participating. Again, here's your live chat. Here's your direct access phone number, same as that you saw in Connect. Your business development managers, I'll throw those up on the very last page. And then the assigned underwriter, you'll always see that assigned underwriter on every submission. And then I highly encourage agents to go to orchidinsurance.com because there are brochures out there. There's the footprint. There's a lot of great information that can be used by yourself and oftentimes that you can share with your insured to try and maybe provide them a little more insight into who Orchid is, who are you placing the business with type of thing. All right. Just for the record, Orchid only writes with AM Best rated carriers that are A- rated or better. We do not deal with demo text. I'll talk more on the policy forms on the next page. The wind available in the Caribbean, typically an English-speaking island with a coverage A of $1 million plus. We talked about the coverages for the primary, secondary, seasonals. Talked about single family up to a fourplex. Named insured flexibility we've covered. Hey, we've burnt through this slide. Let's talk about the forms. So one major change from CAA to Orchid is rental units. All right. So CAA put all rentals under HO3. Well, we actually offer a DP3 policy, and that's what we want you to use. All right. The only exception to that rule is, say I have a multi-unit residence and I'm the owner and I actually live in one of the units. Well, that one we can do on an HO3. But if all the units in that duplex, triplex, fourplex are rented out, that's when it becomes a DP3 policy. All right, so knowing the difference between those. The HO4 for renters, HO5 greater coverages, HO6 when you right where the wind blows, there's just a higher concentration of condos, so we have a great solution there. The DP3, which is often harder to find in the marketplace, we have access to that in all states for you. Builder's risk, I'll cover in just slight more detail in a minute, and then the valuable items coverage we've kind of covered. We've talked about customizing B, C, and D. I'm going to show you something else on the next slide. You've seen the a la carte nature. You've seen the roof shape, the roof attachment to the wall, the opening protection, the water detection device, gated guarded communities. So those are all questions that are going into determining the rate, and then the use of that target premium if necessary. All right, so here's how TIV, or total insured value, this is the primary way Orchid derives its rate. So if you are following kind of the prescribed percentages, you can take that $500,000 home and jack the TIV up to almost $1 million. Where if you were to work with your insured and find out what they actually need, you can see that comes in much lower, saving almost $1,000 a year. So please take advantage of what Orchid is providing to you. All right. I don't know if you noticed, I forgot to point out when I was talking about the transparency on the fees, but that QBE policy did include an equipment breakdown policy. It was $27, and that is much broader than a home warranty. The builder's risk, just work with your underwriter because a typical build doesn't follow a typical policy period, right? It's not a 12-month or you're done. And then the other question is, will we insure that build once it's complete or not? All right, so we are returning rates in Connect on about 80% of our risks, and we're shooting for higher than that, but we think that's a pretty darn good baseline right now. You saw a submission go into underwriting requests and how to handle that. So make sure that you get it out of that limbo zone. And once a referral or a submission has been referred, it's going to be about 24-hour turnaround. I say that oftentimes if you get that in the morning, you'll see that back in the afternoon. Inspections, kind of talked about that. Remember, we are going to do that new and renewal. It will be an inspection company that comes out. We try and limit those to exterior as much as possible, but dependent on where it is, the shape of the home, the age of the home, the value of the home, various things like that may may require an interior inspection as well. And the inspector will let your insured know that when they reach out. And then billing, really important. So new business is all agency bill. So you're not handling the money, but I would highly encourage you to facilitate your insured making that payment so you know that you didn't request bind on something that didn't get paid. On renewals, the direct bill these are all direct bills. So the bills will be going out to the insured or the mortgagee. There will be a question on that information required to bind screen as to who we should bill. And so that will be the directive at renewal as to where that bill is sent. All right. Let's see here. Moratoriums, we kind of talked about that. Remember, you don't have binding authority. If you happen against an AOR or BOR, know that those are only done at renewal, and those are only really available to agents that are active with us currently. All right, and the number of days there, I need to adjust that. I say that every daggone time. It should be 30 to 60 days prior. All right, new business documents. This is the page that I really want to drive home. So this is a change. So the new business, the payment's going to be made by the insured, but we're going to refer to it as agent bill. The agent requests bind. Policy documents are returned to the quoting user, the person that logged into Connect, and if you had indicated an alternative agency contact. All right, so these are not going to Liberty and being distributed out. These are now going to be coming to you. The renewal bills are sent to and paid direct by the insured or the mortgagee, obviously, and then all those documents will be sent out. All service must come through an agent. We do not have a call center to accommodate insured inquiries. So if you have a need for service, please reach out to us. You can do that via live chat. You can do that via the phone number. You can go right into processing if you choose, but please make sure that you are doing that and not your insured. It frustrates the insured when we have to send them back to you, and we don't like doing that either. But we're not licensed agents. We're just here to help the agents along. All right, and then these next two pages, actually, I think I might have deleted a page. This is the primary page for you guys in the Northeast. You can see what the minimum coverage A, and that is really the starting point for what is important in terms of when do you want to start thinking about Orchid. All right, so oh, there it is. I just put them out of order or reordered them. So that information is available to you. And the last slide I want to show you is this one. So in addition to Chris Garrett, whoops, I always do that. I want to highlight stuff. Chris Garrett being over the strategic alliance, so he's more of the corporate guy dealing with corporate people. Then we have the boots on the ground. So depending on what state you're in, your resident state, this is who you would reach out and contact. There are their email addresses and their direct dial phone numbers. So those people are available to you. And business development, to me, is a bigger global question that you might want to pose over, gee, I have a question about a particular submission, or something doesn't really quite jive. So with that, I didn't take your whole hour. I see no questions or anything added into the chat. I hope this was valuable time spent here this morning. Hopefully you've taken some good information away. If you have outstanding questions, please ask the customer experience team. Please ask your business development managers. These are all and your underwriters. These are all people here that are here to help you. We all want to sell business, and we want to sell business together. So do not hesitate to reach out to us. I can't stress that enough. And that customer experience team, again, is available to you Monday through Friday, 8 until 6 Eastern time. So with that, I'm going to say, hey, have a fantastic rest of your day, fantastic weekend. Be safe and vigilant out there. I know things are starting to heat up. Just be careful. And we really appreciate the relationship that we have with each and every one of you and the business that you are sending us. So thank you. Have a great weekend. Take care.